Well, good evening, everybody. Thank you again for taking time to join us as we keep going through the return to play process and as things continually change like they do with this world with COVID. And so before we get started with some of the agenda, I was going to share today, or we looked at the map again today, and it's our favorite website to look at. So um, the updated map as of yesterday. Part of the good way of us going with the Wisconsin Department of Health activity levels is it's pretty easy to see right now. So at the counties that are currently in red are still above 1,000. Those are the ones that are still in phase 0. But the good news is the number of counties this week that dropped below that 1,000 burden threshold is it keeps going up. So if you see the counties in navy blue are now okay to resume it back in phase 1. And if you are in those counties, you should have or will be receiving communication from your local athletic director letting you know that. All we ask is if you do plan on returning, that you do notify us so we can keep tabs of who's being active right now. There's some optimism here just because I'll go back for last week and you can kind of see the difference where we were in numbers on the state. So last year you can see we only had a handful of counties that were below that 1,000 burden number, and done a lot of active agencies in those counties. And so this week we're trending in the right direction. I will say that we're a little bit cautiously optimistic, just because there's a likelihood that these numbers don't include some of the numbers based on Thanksgiving gatherings and traveling. I think there's been a lot of COVID. People are experts of, or more of experts on COVID that have talked about a little bit of a wave here with some of the extra people getting together and traveling because of Thanksgiving, and we may not see that until next week. So I would maybe be a little cautious if you're a county that's maybe a little bit higher. I'm trying to think of, some that are maybe in the 900s, be a little cautious because we may be back to phase 0 after the next week's numbers come out. But the optimistic thing that we're seeing is there's even the ones that are over that burden, the majority of those are shrinking. We even have some other ones that are shrinking that are active right now. So, we talked about it being frustrating that there's a spike and not knowing a timeline, but at least we can say that we're heading in the right direction. And again, it's just going to be it might be a little bit up and down with the holidays between Thanksgiving and then the holidays here in December. So just as much communication as we can do back and forth. If you have any questions about restarting or have any questions about or need any advice about restarting, feel free to reach out to us. But I just wanted to share that with you, kind of start things off on a good note there, that COVID numbers, the thing that we can't necessarily control by ourselves, is heading in the right direction. And so hopefully that means that we're getting back to participating soon, and doing it in a way that's safely. But again, just to reiterate, even though we're able to come back, I really want to make sure that we stress that we are following the protocols for phase 1. We're making safe decisions for the athletes and coaches involved in these practices. Even though the general numbers are going down, we have been getting notified of people within our Special Olympics family getting positive results for COVID and some severe reactions to that. So we just always have to keep that in our mind that we're trying to do things in a safe way and make sure that we can do this appropriately and make sure that we're doing things that are beneficial for our athletes, whether that means being able to participate or maybe holding off just a little bit longer for that. I want to start off with that. A couple of my updates. So we are looking, I will have next week, we'll have an updated return to play policy on the website. There's no new changes from if you've been keeping up with how we've been doing things. The last or the current one that's up on the website was our first one that we released. That was back in July. And basically I've just updated we're updating the language with it to match what we're doing, including like we've discussed about making decisions on phasing by the burden number, and then how to request to petition to move it to phase 2. We just know that there's a lot of agencies that may not have started in August or may not have started in this fall, that may be starting up in December and January. So we're just going to get everybody to the state caught up to the same point, so that as we move forward and more people decide to come back, that we're all on the same page together for that. So keep an eye out for that. And with that, we'll also update the frequently asked questions. So if you do have any additional questions about return to play that you think would be beneficial to include in the frequently asked questions, feel free to email those to the COVID email address, covid@specialolympicswisconsin.org. And then there's one change that we are making in the language and a policy. So previously, when we had released our return to play, if somebody were to test positive, we were requiring a doctor's note for return to play for them to return back to practice and all that. We've been doing a lot of research with and basically using the lead from the CDC, and they don't require that for return to employment. They don't require that for return to school. And so we went with their language. So we don't require a doctor's note after a positive test. We do require that they are out 10 days from the onset of symptoms. And we would recommend touching base with a healthcare professional, but we're not going to be requiring you to turn in a doctor's note in order for an athlete or a coach to return to practice. Again, it's not necessarily because we don't think it's important. We're just following the lead from what the CDC recommends. And so hopefully that makes things a little bit easier for you. But with some of the effects, especially respiratory, I would definitely recommend anybody who gets test positive just to kind of follow up with their doctor to make sure they're comfortable with people returning to physical activity, like participating in sports and practices in that way. Anybody have any questions about that update or any of the information that kind of got put up there at the beginning here?
So I am with WASA temporarily. I don't know what their statutes are, but my county is critically high. I don't know what Marathon is.
Yeah, Marathon is also critically high right now, so both would be still staying in phase 0.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. I didn't mean to screen share, did I?
That was Mark.
Also, I guess the other reminder, and it really right now affects mainly Dane County. So Dane County is below the they're in the very high. They're no longer in the critically high. But as we always have been with a return to play policy, they have to follow the county ordinance, which is stricter than ours currently. So right now there's no indoor gatherings, and then outdoor gatherings are capped out at 10 people. So if you're in Dane County and would be getting ready for winter games, it would be allowable to go to a 10-person practice for that. But if you were to have a normal standard bowling practice where you would meet together as a group, that currently is not allowable in Dane County. So just make sure you're up to date with that. And if you're in Dane County, if you have any questions about how that affects your agency, feel free to reach out to Nicole, or you can email the COVID email address. Got a question in the chat about vaccines being required. I think we're a long ways away from that. I don't even know. We haven't heard anything from SOI or SONA. We'd pretty much follow their lead. I would doubt that there may be. I guess I don't know. It's way too soon for me to speak on that, especially with it not being available at this point. So we'll keep you updated with that. I guess I don't know if we necessarily have a say, but. And Mark Ullman, so it's he asked if it's 10 days from after the symptoms stop or 10 days from the symptoms start. The CDC recommendation is from when from the onset of symptoms. So that would be when they start. And the idea would be that after a certain point, after symptoms, it becomes less contagious or not contagious. If I'm Don, you're nodding your head. Is that kind of
Yeah,
the reasoning behind that?
unless it was a severe case, then they would recommend a little bit longer. But for most cases, it's from the onset of symptoms.
Yep.
That's what
And so
to find out if they're still infectious. And so
Yep.
for
and I do know from some experiences with that we've been hearing from some people that we have contact with, that there are some people who get affected with COVID and have symptoms that last longer than 10 days, longer than 14 days. So obviously, if they're symptomatic, they should not be coming to practice. But the general quarantine idea is 10 days after the onset of symptoms. And if you, again, the reminder is that if somebody was symptomatic at a practice, we still are asking that the practice not be held for 2 weeks, for the next 2 weeks after that. So that's the difference between the guidance between somebody infected and close contact with somebody who's infected, because sometimes there's a little bit of a delay. If somebody has contact with somebody and then they were to get COVID, there's a couple-day delay in that. So that's the difference in those dates.
Okay. Myself and my son had COVID, and we were told 10 days from the date of our test, which means it was a couple days after the symptoms. So that'd be a little bit longer. 10 days from the date of our test is what we had to quarantine.
Yeah. Okay. And so I would say, so we are going off of what the CDC said, and obviously whatever a healthcare professional goes tells you, I would follow that.
Yeah.
But just as a general policy, we're just following what the CDC had.
Yeah, it was contact tracers that confirmed that, as well as my doctor. So
yeah, and the CDC has been updating their information recently. Like that I think the 10-day, there's been a couple of time frames that they've shrunk a little bit in the last week or so.
we're out of quarantine now, but that was our experience with it.
Yeah, there's apparently there's different opinions depending on different healthcare providers.
Yeah.
Make it easy for us. We're just going everything off the CDC website.
Yeah, because even when it comes to retesting, my doctor said there's no point in retesting once you've gotten a positive for 90 days, because your test will likely come up positive anyway. Yep. So, I was told that, don't bother. And so there shouldn't be anybody requiring you to retest because you're not going to get the results.
Right. Yep. I hope everybody's okay with after getting it there.
We are okay. We had mild symptoms. Kyle started with it first, and then I got it from him. Well, I assumed I got it from him. I don't really know, but I tested 5 days after he did. So we spent most of November at home.
Quarantine. Yeah.
I work from home, so it didn't really affect my work ability to work, but it did keep Kyle home. So
yeah. No, I'm glad it's mild. It was mild for you guys. And we're
strongly recommend masks, but even with masks, my son was wearing, he was really faithful to the mask and still caught it. So we don't know where we got it, but we got it.
Mm-hmm. All right. The next couple updates. So we will be sending out tomorrow. We'll be sending out a new intent to play. It's going to include winter games, basketball skills, and then also the fitness challenge. If you've already filled out the first basketball skills intent to play, we're asking that you fill out this one just because we want some updated information. I don't know if there's agencies who previously weren't going to join but are going to join, so we want to get that accounted for. And if there's agencies that were planning on doing it and then chose not to based on venue availability or interest or that, we're also going to include on the email that has the intent to play the basketball skills rules for 2021, which includes the level 3 skills. So those who are looking for making a decision for how many level 3 skills athletes you might have, you'll have the information for that, and then you can make an informed decision based off of that. So please, again, fill that out. It just gives us a chance to plan our in-person activities better. We also have some questions in there about if you're planning on participating in in-person competitions if we were able to hold them regionally, or if you're able to hold them at a state level. So that information will just help us with some planning as far as scheduling and all that type of stuff. So anything you could do for that will be helpful. And then, and so just keep an eye out for that. Should be coming out tomorrow for that. And then the last thing that I wanted to touch base on from the sports component side of things is the bowling season. So now that we have some agencies that are coming back, I know we're going to have some people who are having questions about with if now that we're starting to practice, does that mean we can start doing stuff for bowling scores and all that type of stuff? So we are still not unpausing the bowling league at this point. So if your agencies are approved to go back to bowling practice, it's going to be getting back, kind of knocking the rust off a little bit. It would not be a bad idea to record scores, but right now we're kind of figuring out how we're going to set up the score submission, all that stuff once we return. We're anticipating, assuming that numbers cooperate the way that they are cooperating, that we'd probably be looking at January restart for the league. That way it gets us around some of the scheduling conflicts from the holidays. But so right now, I guess if you're able to practice, go back for that. And then by the next coaches meeting, we're going to try to have a little bit more of an update about how the structure is going to look when we restart and what scores can be submitted and all that type of stuff. So so that's part of it. Let me see. Don mentioned, so I think that I got asked about our USA games. We'll touch base on that later. Basketball season. So right now it's a little bit, so right now we're still planning on trying to do for basketball skills, still trying to do February regional competitions, and March 21st is our state competition. Those dates mostly are set. There's one or two places that our venues are not allowing us to book the date at this point, but if numbers go the right direction, we would get in. I will say that we are just going to have to go, just like everything else, we're going to be flexible with some of these things. If we get to around competition time and the numbers aren't cooperating and the facilities aren't cooperating, then we'll have to make a decision about what do we do in that situation, whether we decide to move on from basketball skills, or if we decide to try to play around with the time frame in the sport in the season. I will just tell you that we've discussed a lot of different possibilities, and really there's no possibilities that are off the table for basketball skills. I know that's not a firm answer for everybody, but I just want to just like everything else right now, we just have to be flexible and kind of go with what's going on here. We want to give as many experiences for athletes as we can, but also do it in a safe manner. So I would just stay tuned on that. And if you're asking, I guess I've been asked a couple of times of when will we know which direction we're going. We'll make a lot of judgments at probably starting mid-January once we get past the holiday season and get those waves of numbers for COVID coming in. And then probably by the registration deadlines, we'll have a better answer for what that's going to look like, which I know cuts it a little close, but this is just a weird year, and we just kind of have to go with those time frames. So, but that's where we're kind of at with basketball skills, and like I said, bowling, and with bowling starting in January, and if basketball skills does stay where it's at, I did get an email question. There may be some overlap there, but we would allow athletes to participate in both bowling and basketball skills. There would not be a conflict issue there. The only conflict that may arise would be within your agency if you normally do basketball skills practice and bowling at the same time or something like that. And when we do restart bowling, we will give an opportunity for athletes who weren't originally signed up to be added in, and as well as if there's athletes who choose no longer participate, we just ask you to let us know that so we can modify your registration forms. So we can know who we should be expecting scores from. So. And then I will also tell you we're having our first games management planning meeting for Winter Games next week. So by our next coaches meeting, we'll have a lot more of a firm update for what Winter Games changes or what it will look like. The only thing they said, what we've talked about in the past, what I can confirm is that it's going to be a one day on February 20th in Wausau. So, yeah. So and I just got asked in the chat. So for winter games, we're still planning on offering all 4 of the sports: alpine skiing, snowboarding, cross country skiing, and snowshoe. There just may be adapted scheduling specifically for snowshoe because that's our largest venue. And then since it's a 1-day event, it's going to be, we'll probably look at getting some qualifying scores for athletes for those, since we won't have a qualifying day like we normally would at winter games. So any questions about early 2021 sports that I just went over? All right, can hand it over to, I believe, Sam is next.
Hi, everybody. So every week I send out an update on athlete rosters and COVID participant release forms. And this week I also included some new information on medical expiration extensions for athletes. Most of you know that in June, SLI gave guidance that we should extend medical expirations for athletes who expired between March 15th and November 1st. They were given a 6-month extension. And we recently received more guidance from SLI to extend medicals or expirations even further. So not only were those same athletes extended further, any athlete who expires before July 1st of 2021 was extended to July 1st, 2021. There are a couple exceptions. Athletes whose medicals expired before, for lack of a better word, COVID, they did not receive an extension. The reason being, they want athletes to always renew by their expiration deadline. So anybody who expired before March 15th still did not receive an extension. And then athletes are not allowed to go over 1 year past their medical expiration. So athletes, for example, who expired in April of this year, they were not extended till July 1st. They were just extended until April of 2021. So I don't know if you're a coach, how you get updates of medical expirations, but you should always ask your agency manager or the medical records person, or you can look it up online, or you can also contact me just to verify. I believe it was about 2,000 total athletes whose medical expirations were extended. So quite a number of athletes. Now for athletes who may be joining for the first time, for example, if you have new athletes joining for winter games, depending on how the season goes, they will still need to submit new paperwork. They don't get to join without any paperwork on file. So that is one restriction. There are other restrictions too, like if an athlete has difficulty breathing, shortness of breath, coughing during practices, or if they've had any other significant health changes, they really should renew their medical, even if they technically have an extension. But if you have any questions, like I said, reach out to me. I don't know if Brittany, you could put my email in the chat. And everything should be updated on the website by tomorrow afternoon. That's when I usually update the website. But if you have any questions, just please reach out.
Great. Any questions on that before we jump to the next thing? I just put Sam's email in the chat. Great. So one thing Jason kind of alluded to in the intent to play conversation earlier was we are offering a fitness competition. So this is something new. We've never done it before. It is not, it's different from SoFit. It's a great opportunity to have a competition regardless of where we're at with COVID, because it can be done virtually at home or potentially even in a practice situation if your county is able to do in-person practices. The competition will be, I'm going to try to explain as much as I can. There's still a lot of unknowns. The intent to play is going to give us a lot of feedback that'll help us make some decisions, but we are looking at having an individual option, a pair option, which could be unified or traditional, as well as potentially a team option, which again could be unified or traditional. Those decisions will definitely depend on the intent to play and if we have enough people to have all of those different options. So please fill that out if you're interested. The event itself will be comprised of 2 to 3 different levels. So there'll be a level for all ability levels of our athletes, kind of like a easy, medium, hard, or easy, hard. Again, the number of levels might be dependent on how many people we have participating. We don't want to make our divisions so small that we want to have good competition. Either way, the levels will be comprised of 4 different exercises. Roughly, it'll be like an upper body strength, lower body strength, core, balance, things like that. We will provide instructions, rules, videos to demonstrate how to do it. We'll even have a coach's training in January, which will basically be very similar to what we're doing right now, a Zoom call. We'll talk about everything you need to know for the competition. But the basics are there'll be a preliminary score submitted at the start of the season, and then there will be a mid-season score. The score, I should say, is depending on the exercise, either like a number of reps or how long you're holding something. It depends on the exercise. So the mid-season score, you'll submit a raw score. So again, the number of reps, but the score will be based on percent improvement from that first score entry, that preliminary score. That percent improvement will help us division. And then there will be an end of season score, which is what you'll be awarded on. Again, it'll be based on percent improvement from that beginning preliminary score. We'll do all the math for you. We'll make it as easy as possible. There'll be registration forms, just like we have for any other competition. We are encouraging coaches to run their own practices, which are essentially workouts, to help athletes improve throughout the season. We as staff will also be hosting practices virtually via Zoom for athletes to either supplement what they're doing with their agency, or perhaps the agency isn't running a practice, but at least they have an option to practice with us. We will be providing trackers for athletes to track what they're doing either at practice, or hopefully they're also doing things outside of practice. We will be providing practice plans for coaches. I know fitness isn't everyone's forte, but we will do our best to provide all the resources and information that we can to help you along the way. And like I say, that coaches training in January will be a great thing to attend. We will record and send out, of course, but will be a great way to learn a little bit more once we have more information from the intent to play on exactly what's going on.
Why don't you give a couple examples of the exercises, just so people know what you're talking about?
You want me to like get up?
No.
Just kidding. So one example, I'm kidding. So one example for the lower body strength, if we do the 3 different levels, the lower level would be what I call sit to stand. So it's basically sitting in a chair and standing up. Don's demonstrating. Thank you, Don. There's specific instructions on form, not only to make it fair, but also to make sure people are doing it safely. The level 2 option for that lower body strength would be the next step up, which would be a squat. So it's basically the same movement, just without the chair. And then the 3rd level of that would be more advanced, so like a wall sit. So you're doing a wall sit, which is, if you've ever done a wall sit, it's pretty challenging. And then timing how long you'd be able to sit against a wall as if there's a chair there, but there's no chair there. So that's just an example of what the exercise would be like. They're relatively simple. All of the exercises, I'll say this, do not require equipment, which is key if we're doing them virtually at home. They also do not require a whole lot of space. I specifically chose exercises that did not require a lot of setup and space because I know that's challenging when we're all at home. Like I say, more information to come, but that's kind of what you can expect. Please fill out the intent to play. That'll really, really help us in our planning. Kind of along that same, I'm sorry, just looking at the chat. We will be sharing the intent to play tomorrow is I think our goal to get that out. And I would love to create an app. I think it's coming down the pipeline from SOI, as Don mentioned, but we're not quite there yet. But along the same mindset of our coaches training in January, just a reminder that we're having a Zoom training in a couple weeks on Wednesday, December 16th at 7 o'clock. I will send out the sign up. I sent it out once before, but I'll send it again in the follow-up email tomorrow. But this is a really great way. This is more Zoom specific training, how to set up an account, how to set up a meeting, the different logistics within a meeting as you're a host and things you can do and all sorts of good stuff like that. If you are planning on doing fitness or at least interested in doing the fitness competition, I recommend attending the Zoom training if you're not super familiar with Zoom. It can be a great way to have your virtual practices with athletes. Yes, I think that's all I wanted to say on the Zoom training. Any questions about fitness competition or Zoom training or any of the trainings coming up?
Brittany, when did you say that the Zoom training was going to be again?
The Zoom training will be Wednesday, December 16th at 7 o'clock. Right now we have it scheduled from 7 to 8:30. I don't know, the time frame will kind of depend on how many questions people have. I imagine it being at least an hour, but we kind of gave it a little buffer in case people have a lot of questions.
Hey, Brittany, is the fitness training for athletes or is it just for coaches?
The
Can
fitness
athletes do it?
training will be a coach's training in January.
No, I meant the fitness competition.
Oh, that is for athletes, all athletes. And actually, because there's a unified component, coaches are welcome to join us if they want to say. I highly encourage it. It's a great opportunity.
I'm kind of interested. Thank you.
Good.
I would mention for the Zoom training, there is a sign up sheet for people who are interested in that. And Brittany, I'm assuming you're including that in the follow up?
Yep.
And Bev, I'm sending out to all agency managers tomorrow morning the link to sign up and excuse me, and the reminder.
To get it twice, one from me and one from Mark. On that note, around a similar time frame, we are having our year-end celebration. So Tuesday, December 15th, we will have some live interactive opportunities. So at 6 o'clock, we will be hosting, tentatively right now it's Jeopardy. There's a chance that might switch, I think. 7 o'clock will be our Healthy Athletes Fun Fitness. It's not going to be a screening per se, but more of an education component. And at 8 o'clock, we will have a year-end dance. So bring your lights, bring your dance moves. That'll be a fun night for everyone. And then Wednesday, I know it's the same night as the Zoom meeting, but Wednesday we will be having some pre-recorded things aired on our Facebook page. There's going to be, hopefully, we're still kind of working out the logistics, but hopefully an athlete interview, similar to how we did, was that a couple months ago now? The fall outdoor celebration. And then there also will be a year-end celebration video put on by our marketing team, which should be really fun just to see all the wonderful things that went on this year.
And for that year-end video, make sure you send, if you have photos or videos from anything you've done this year, practices, competitions, you can send it to media@Special Olympics Wisconsin. And Brittany, I can type that in since you're talking.
Yeah, that'd be great. I do see, Jason, you answered for me, but I'm going to bring it up to the group. Can athletes participate in fitness and basketball skills? Yes, absolutely. We actually hope to have this fitness competition be something that we offer potentially year-round, basically one in every quarter. And I'd love for it to be an additional component. Fitness helps all athletes in every sport do better in their sport. So it's a great opportunity to get basically a second practice in for the week doing fitness. So yes, you can do both. I highly encourage it, in fact. And if you didn't catch any of those dates and times, I will send that up in the follow-up email. So if you didn't catch something, don't worry, it'll come tomorrow. I'm gonna maybe pop it back over to Jason for USA Games.
Sure. Yeah, we so for USA Games, we currently have two different, or I guess 3 different type of applications that are live on the website for people to register for. So first, that one that's been up for a little while is our bowling registration form. So we had done, there's the criteria on there for participating, or so they have a gold medal at a state games in the last 2 years, 2018 or 2019, signed up for the original bowling league in 2020, or complete the 2021 bowling league when we started up, hopefully in January. So there's 4 different ways for an athlete to get involved in it. They would register, then they would get nominated from that. And if any athletes that get nominated, we will follow up with agency managers to make sure that they're appropriate to be attending USA Games. We also are accepting nominations for unified bowling, and we're planning on taking unified pairs in that. So we're asking anybody who gets nominated as a unified bowler, we want them to be nominated with a unified partner that they're familiar with and have participated with. And again, the criteria for that is participating in unified bowling in the previous 2 years, or participating in unified bowling in the restarted league, since we didn't have anybody registered for it in the original fall league. So on the application, it will ask if you're being nominated for traditional bowling or unified. If somebody qualifies for both, they can definitely apply for both. But by the time the camp comes up, they would have to choose which route they're going in, so I know which one they're more committed to. And so that application form is up there. And then we just launched our 2 coaches application forms. So we have application form for coaches for the different sports that we are bringing out to USA Games, as well as we are planning on bringing a athlete as coach. And so all the criteria for the athlete as coach is listed on that application. So for athletes who are interested in joining the Team Wisconsin for USA Games as an athlete coach, there's definitely some requirements that need to be met in order to do that. But please feel free to share that with anybody who you think might be good in that role, especially if they've have some coaching experience within your agency as well. So that's the big thing on that. And like Don had mentioned earlier, or somebody had mentioned earlier, we are going to extend the deadline for bowling registration forms coming in. We haven't set what that extension looks like, just because we are waiting to see when the new bowling league will start, or the bowling league will start up, and then we'll have a better idea for a time frame for that. But we're not going to leave anybody out by putting a deadline. We're going to make it as flexible as possible to make sure that we get people who would be interested and are qualified to go the opportunity to get nominated for that. And similarly with our other sports, as similar to the other sports, as we know the scheduling for that, we will post the coach or the athlete nomination forms, as well as the deadlines for those, once we get a better idea for time frames. So if our basketball, or I guess basketball doesn't get affected by it, when we get to track and swimming, depending on the time frame for those seasons, we will put the deadline that in accordance to that as well. And again, for as long as we're not as long as our competitions look a little different than they normally would, we will still be accepting kind of backdating what the requirements are, using previous years as a way to get people in. Again, trying to make it more possible to get nominated than less possible. We don't want to punish people because of what's going on with COVID. So, any questions with USA Games?
So I sent in a USA nomination form.
Yep.
For bowling. Do I have to resend a new
Nope.
one in or not?
Nope. If you send it in once, we got it.
Okay.
So, and Mike, I can confirm we have yours. So you're good to go for bowling from a nomination form standpoint. We'll and then you'll get more information as we go through the process.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
The question I got asked is the deadline for the coaches application forms, and it's currently March 1st. Amber from Team Franklin asked if they can send in pics from basketball skills, which were in January and February. Absolutely send those in. We're looking for any of the competitions and all that type of stuff that we held. So we were able to get through some basketball competitions as well as winter games. So if you have photos from those events, as well as any practices that you may have had since the restart. So I see PJ is waving us down. Do you want to unmute yourself, PJ?
Thanks. I just want to make sure you guys got our application, me and my brothers.
Michaela's giving you the thumbs up. Yes,
Okay.
you're good to go. Jake.
Yeah, a quick question.
Okay.
For the unified component, can we do unified and the traditional the same time frame?
So for the unified that we're bringing is flag football. We still are trying to figure out the criteria for
I
that.
mean, for bowling,
Oh, for bowling.
you do both?
I don't with the bowling league. I think for this year you're doing one or the other. In normal years, it would have been. So are you talking about applying for bowling?
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you qualify for unified and you qualify for traditional, you could put in applications for both. But when we get to training camp, we're going to ask you which one you want to go with. It's just the same way that athletes can be nominated for multiple sports if they qualify, but then they would have to make a choice at the first training camp so we know which pool to put them in when we do our draws for USA games.
Wait, yeah, for next year, is Sledges Camp in Oshkosh or Stevens Point?
So we're currently looking at doing it in Oshkosh in September of next year. There's still some things being worked out. So I think Don's laughing a little bit. That's why I was reacting that way. But yes, we're currently, I think we currently have dates set. It just, there's also some things that could play around with some of those. But the plan right now is that we're hoping to have a traditional training camp in September, assuming like everything else that the world allows us to do that. So.
What if that can't happen, so what's plan B?
We'll give you a plan B when we find out that can't happen. So there's a long time between now and September, so we have some time to think about it. But it's not that doesn't mean we haven't already started. So ideally we want to kind of go through the process as best as we can because I think that gives us the best information. But obviously we won't put anybody in a bad spot if we can't do the camp like we normally would. So, all right.
What about for softball too?
Yep, like I said, we're going season by season with this, and that's why we haven't released some of those applications because without knowing exactly what the season looks like, we want to wait until we have all the information that we can so we can get that out. So
For the question for unified flag football,
yeah, we'll be sending that information out later. We have that one's still to be determined. So we'll get that probably closer to in the summer to fall.
okay.
So, all right.
I just wanted to add one quick note. It's just, Jason, are you good? Sorry, I didn't mean to.
Yeah.
Okay. So some of you may have received an email from me that kind of the end of the year time frame. I usually send out a reminder for any coaches that are expiring with their coaches certification because it expires December 31st every year. So I send out my round of emails. So you may have gotten something from me. We are actually experiencing some technical difficulties with our website. And so you're not getting an automatic reply that your certification went through. And also I'm not getting an automatic reply that you completed the certification. So hang tight, you don't have to do it again yet. I'm trying to figure it out, trying to figure out if I can see a backlog of ones that were completed during this IT issue. I'm working on it. So if you received a notification from me, it might be best to maybe wait a little bit before you complete your certification. It is good through the end of the year. But if you've been having any issues, that is what's going on. So I'm doing my best to get it resolved and get all those certifications updated, but we're in a little bit of a halt right now.
So is that certification once a year, you said?
It's good for 3 years. It just expires at the end of the year of that third year. So every December I have a batch of people that are expiring. So I only send to those that are expiring. So if you didn't get an email from me, you're good to go.
I don't remember getting one, and I'm thinking I recertified last spring to go to national bowling, which we ended up not going
Sure.
because of the pandemic.
Yeah, if you didn't get an email from me, you're good to go. And if any agency managers are getting questions from their coaches, that might be why. But we're working on it. I can send out, that's a great question, Amber. I can send out an email when things are resolved to let you know that you're good to go to take it. If you've already taken it, just hang tight. I'm hoping I can get a list of those that have taken it, but yes, I'll send out an email when it's fixed.
From personal experience, that email went out within the last week that your expiring came up, because mine came that way.
You were on my list.
Yep.
I received a question about medical deadlines. I will have to say, definitely, we're going to continue to be flexible with medical deadlines, especially for the first half of the year. Somebody asked, is it still going to be a February 1st, April 1st, June 1st? I would say at this time, it's a safe bet that we won't be adhering to those dates and rather continue to go by when registrations are due. You will be receiving a separate roster from me. There are still going to be about 1,200 athletes total that do expire and will need to renew if they intend on participating the first half of the year. So you will be receiving that from me likely in the next couple weeks. And as I said before, it still applies to new athletes if they want to join for the first time. They still have to submit their new paperwork.
Kind of on that note, just to piggyback, that it goes for the fitness competition as well. So the fitness competition is just like any other sport competition. So the registration deadline, which is still to be determined, will be the medical deadline, as Sam mentioned. So if anyone's, again, there might be an extension for your medical, but following that same guideline. If you're doing the fitness competition virtually, you do not need to fill out the COVID release form, but as we start getting back to the in-person practices, don't forget that if you have not filled that out, or if your athletes have not filled that out, that we will need those COVID release forms to participate in person.
Any other general questions? We've gone through all of our agenda for today. Otherwise,
Jake, you raising your hand? Can unmute.
Oh, the question here. Who, for the USA Games nomination forms, who does that get submitted to?
basically our whole sports staff can see because it's a Google form, so we all have access to the responses. So we as a sports staff, we actually have a committee that is doing all the planning for USA Games, and so we will all review those when the time comes.
So it's online, Jake. It's not a paper form, so it'll automatically get submitted to us.
Like it's all previously was a paper form.
Right.
Right. Yep. We're trying to streamline it a little bit this year. All right. Well, again, if you have any questions as things go along, feel free to reach out to the COVID email address, covid@specialolympicswisconsin.org. Multiple people check that email account, so we'll be able to respond back to that. Otherwise, you can also follow up with your athletic directors or any of the other sports staff as we kind of move forward on these things. You know, I appreciate everybody's patience and the communication as we go through some of these more uncertain times with participating or not participating, and your patience as we kind of get back to a safer level of participation. And hoping we're at a point where we're going to keep going and getting some events going here coming up here in the first quarter of next year. So we're excited to see everybody. And again, if you have any questions or concerns or anything like that, feel free to reach out to us. Otherwise, next meeting is the 17th, 2 weeks from today. We did get confirmation that part of the, we do have somebody from, it sounds like our development department, who come on and share a little bit more information about the polar plunges for those who have questions about that, and the options as agencies goes. But then we also have more information about bowling and more information about what Winter Games looks like. So that's going to be maybe a little bit of a bigger meeting information wise. So hopefully you guys can join us.
Can athletes join for that meeting? Confirmation
For which meeting?
for the 17th?
That's the same coaches meeting that we're currently on.
Oh, okay. I was confused there.
Just 2 weeks from now.
Okay.
All right. Jake, do you want to ask us after we're done, or do you need to do it for the whole group?
Week,
What was that?
reminder about next week for the SOWS BSFO movie night.
Yep,
movie
that's the
night?
Badgers for Special Olympics. That'll be the Wednesday at 7.
Yeah, it's next week.
Yep,
That's all athletes who can join.
yep.
I'll give Don a break.
So should you guys send out a reminder to all agency managers about that?
Yeah, we'll be communicating what's going on with that. So, all right. Well, thanks everybody. Have a great evening. We'll see you guys in a couple weeks.
Okay.